In 1934, our nation embarked upon the Reciprocal Trade Agreements program as an emergency means for meeting grave emergency conditions. In inaugurating that program, the Congress and the Executive were grappling with the pressing needs and deplorable conditions here and abroad with which the nation was confronted. In those tragic days when the avalanche of economic dislocations threatened to plunge into chaos our entire economic life, it was clear that the hope of attaining full and stable prosperity was utterly futile unless we could restore our shriveled foreign commerce. At the bottom of the Depression, our foreign trade, exports and imports combined, amounted to less than $3 billion a year as compared with the pre-Depression level of more than $9 billion. Billions of dollars of lost business activity had to be regained if recovery was to be attained and economic progress resumed. The breakdown of international trade, which brought on the collapse of our domestic economy as well, resulted primarily from the rise of excessive and unreasonable trade barriers, high tariffs, embargoes, quotas, import licenses, exchange controls, and many others. Our foreign trade could be restored only through a reduction of these excessive barriers here and abroad. The best way to accomplish this was to negotiate mutually beneficial agreements with individual countries based upon a reciprocal reduction of excessive trade barriers. The Trade Agreements Program was enacted for the express purpose of expanding our exports through the reduction of trade barriers in other countries. I submit that it has done so. We have concluded 22 reciprocal trade agreements with countries which represent about 60% of our total foreign trade. Through these agreements, important foreign markets have been kept open or expanded for our producers of cotton, wheat, corn, hog products, fruits, vegetables, tobacco, lumber, iron and steel semi-manufacturers, automobiles and trucks, electrical apparatus, machinery of various types, rubber products, textiles, chemicals, paints, hides and leather products, and a host of other agricultural and non-agricultural American specialties. Between 1934 and 35 and 1937 and 38, our exports to all foreign countries increased by $1 billion, or 46%. But exports to trade agreement countries rose during this period by 61%, while exports to non-agreement countries increased by only 38%. These substantial and welcome increases in our exports resulted in large measure from the reduction of the other countries' trade barriers, as well as from an undertaking on the part of other countries not to discriminate against our goods under the operation of the most favored nation principle, better known as the principle of equal treatment. It is clear that we cannot secure equal treatment abroad unless we are prepared to give it to other countries. Hence, when we extend to all countries which do not discriminate against our goods the benefit of concessions granted in trade agreements, we thereby ensure equality of treatment for our exports over an area far larger than that covered by the trade agreements themselves. This is not a case of giving away something for nothing. So far, we have safeguarded in this manner a volume of exports many times greater than the amount of trade on which we have granted what is known as generalization of concessions to non-agreement countries. By enacting the Trade Agreements Program, the Congress authorized limited adjustments of our tariff rates as a means of promoting our foreign trade through securing adjustments of excessive trade barriers in other countries. We have reduced duties only after a most careful examination of all relevant factors, and only to an extent to which, after an equally careful examination, it was found that such adjustments would not prejudice any established branch of production in agriculture, in mining, or in manufacturing industry. Where necessary, as an additional safeguard, we have limited the amount of imports which would be permitted to come in at the reduced rate of duty. No evidence of serious injury has been adduced. in the assertions and allegations which have been put forward by the opponents and critics of the trade agreements program. The loudest assertions of these critics of injury have been made in connection with agriculture. But the fact is that by the end of 1932, after 2.5 years of Hawley Smoot tariff embargoes, farm cash income had declined from $11,200 million to $4,700 million, while by 1938, after 4 years of the trade agreements program, farm income had risen to $7,600 million, excluding benefit payments. Does this increase of farm income by $3 billion indicate injury? The reason why no evidence of material injury to our farmers or to any other group of producers resulting from the operation of the trade agreement program has been adduced is that no such injury has in fact occurred. On the contrary, the trade agreements program has expanded markets at home and abroad for all groups of producers. This result has been due primarily to the method employed in carrying out the program. That method is democratic in every sense of the word. Under it, no interested party is denied a full hearing, and all representations are given the most careful study. Under it, the immensely difficult and complex task of promoting general prosperity through stimulation of foreign trade without material injury to any domestic producers is performed by impartial and qualified experts within definite limitations laid down by the Congress. Under that method, the Congress reserves its basic prerogatives while putting into operation temporarily the most effective means that can be devised to meet a grave emergency situation through cooperation of the legislative and executive branches of the government, with the powers given to the executive strictly limited in both scope and duration. The task of rebuilding our foreign trade requires caution and infinite care. It is necessarily a slow process. In a world headed steadily in the direction of narrow nationalism, with all its attendant disasters for the well-being of our country and of all countries, we have taken a position of leadership in an effort to reverse that fatal trend. Our work has borne tangible fruit, but the stupendous task involved was only partly completed when a widespread war again broke out. That calamity has imposed upon us new tasks and new responsibilities. While hostilities are in progress, it is necessary for us to defend our export trade from the inroads of wartime controls and dislocations. For this purpose, the trade agreements now in effect are of inestimable value. The need for facilitating trade and for keeping alive the principles which underlie the trade agreements program is of crucial importance. For our actions now will have an enormous influence upon the problems of economic reconstruction when the war shall have ended. Our nation and every nation can enjoy sustained prosperity only in a world which is at peace. A peaceful world is possible only when there exists for it a solid economic foundation, an indispensable part of which is active and mutually beneficial trade among the nations. The creation of such a foundation is the second of the two primary objectives of the trade agreement program, which seeks the advancement of our domestic prosperity and the promotion of world peace. The establishment of sound international trade relations will be an essential problem of post-war reconstruction. What role will our country play in this process? In the years following the World War, we led the procession of destructive protectionism. Are we to play this same role again? That would be the case if we were now to abandon the trade agreements program, for it would be the equivalent of destroying the only policy which stood in the recent past and can stand in the immediate future as a bulwark against a complete reversion to policies under which the channels of trade will become more and more blocked, to policies under which the nations of the world will continue their disastrous march toward increasing economic nationalism, regimentation, economic distress, the dole on an ever-growing scale, social instability, and recurrent warfare. Under such conditions, there can be no enduring peace and no sustained prosperity for our nation. The world needs today and will need increasingly tomorrow the surplus production of our agriculture and industry, just as our farmers and our workmen and our businessmen need foreign markets for the maintenance of their prosperity. The choice before us is whether we shall throw away these precious opportunities by abandoning the trade agreements program, or whether we shall keep ready for use whenever possible the necessary means of prompt and effective action provided by the program. The choice before us is whether we shall lead the way towards the slough of despair and ruin for ourselves and for others, or toward the heights of economic progress, sustained prosperity, and enduring peace for our nation and for the world.